Okay, welcome back to Pinning Perspectives. I'm Allie.
I'm Angel.
And I'm Grace. And today we're going to continue with our third episode about the 7 myths of writing centers by Richard Leahy from Boise University. And today we're going to address 4 and 5, which is, does the writing center do the work for the students? And should faculty require students to visit the studio?
Yeah, I feel like number 4 is really the biggest misconception students have about writing studios. Is they come in, they make a consultation, you get there, you sit down with them, and you're like, okay, what are we working on? And they're just like, oh, well, I have to write this essay. And then they just expect you to write it for them, to start it for them, to give them good sentences or vocabulary or words that they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. They come in, and I feel like a lot of the time, especially with the ones who come in for revising appointments, they expect you to just read it over and fix it for you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not expecting it to be a conversation, to be a discussion about how they can fix it. So they don't realize that we're partially teaching and we're modeling what should be done when you're revising those assignments.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too, is that that's sort of the good thing about what we do, is that, rather than fixing, which, whether that be a misconception on part of, students or faculty, fixing wouldn't really even help students as much as what we actually do, which is, modeling more effective communication. So I feel like the idea of fixing in and of itself isn't accurate and it isn't fair. It wouldn't be fair to us to fix students' papers, and they're not getting, the everything out of it if we're just fixing everything for them. If we're modeling everything for them, then they don't necessarily have to keep coming back, but they can, use what they've learned and actually apply it somewhere else. So I feel like that's what makes it so effective.
Absolutely. And I feel like when I get students who repeat, who come over and over again, I get to see their progress because I am modeling. Like in a consultation, oftentimes, if they have a full paper, maybe we'll take a look at the first paragraph and we'll identify problems that we see in the first paragraph. And then from then on, it's all them. Like those next 3, 6, 20, however many paragraphs is all them. And you get to see them improve as they come back in for more writing. You get to see them fix those mistakes themselves that we saw the first time they came in. That's always a really good experience for me because I'm like, oh, I've done something. They've learned something from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that ties back into number 5, and that, the misconception of like faculty requiring consultations. I think it's easy to forget that writing centers, I guess, collaborate with students on individual needs rather than just, like we mentioned earlier, like coming in for proofreading. Like all we need to pay attention to is like grammar mistakes and punctuation mistakes, and it's more of like, what does the individual need?
Yeah, not everyone has a problem with grammar. Sometimes grammar is not even an issue. It's that they don't know where they're going with a paper. They don't understand what they want to be talking about. And I feel like oftentimes faculty is like, oh, go in, they'll look it over for you, they'll take care of it, whatever. Or sometimes I think faculty doesn't realize that when they're forcing students to come in, that they're putting up a blockade between us and them. Because a lot of the times, the reason that students will work with us, will talk to us about their problems, will improve with us, is because they feel a kind of peer relationship. And when faculty is inviting them, telling them, saying, go in there, you have to meet with them, it's required, it, it makes them uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. It makes me think of like coming in for a consultation, sitting down with someone, and you get, I guess, when you're giving constructive criticism and feedback, students can get very upset and I guess, I don't want to say aggressive, not necessarily aggressive, but
they can feel like it's an attack.
Yeah, there's like this tension, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to tear apart your paper because you're not a bad writer. We just want to help you improve, and I feel like dictating how writing centers operate with students, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and no, don't get me wrong, like faculty sometimes should require a student to come in. Sometimes a student will really benefit from coming to visit with us, and they might not get there themselves. They might not want to come in because they feel uncomfortable. And so that being mandated by a professor can be helpful. It's just very situational, and it's very hard to define that line for when a faculty member should say, you need to go in, you need to meet with a consultant, and when they should be like, hey, if you wanted to go in and meet with a consultant, like that difference between mandating it, making it a requirement, and suggesting it and offering it is a really hard line, I think, to figure out.
And I think going off of that, with faculty requiring visits, is that, sometimes it is situational and it really depends. But another thing that I always, really love is when faculty like actually collaborate with us and they tell us, hey, can you all like focus on these in your consultations? And, can you, this is the purpose of, why I'm doing this. Because it helps me as a consultant understand, the actual purpose behind everything. And it helps me know how best to guide the student, I think, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, I hope that really kind of addresses for you guys why a writing studio exists and what it's really used for and how can students use it and how can faculty use it. So, see you next time.